Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's NASC Preferred Supplier webinar, The Future of Pet Supplements. I'm Jenny Parker with NASC, and now it's my pleasure to introduce Nicole Hill, Vice President of Strategy and Innovation at Marketplace. Nicole advises global enterprises and mid-market companies across the pet, supplement, food, and beverage industries. Her clients include well-known names such as Bark, SupplySide, Carry, Tropiclean, and Farmland Traditions. Nicole also leads Marketplace's consumer research division, Next in Research, the go-to resource for uncovering the needs and motivations shaping the future of these categories. As a frequent speaker at leading industry events, including the NASC annual conference, Nicole is known for bringing consumer insights to life. Please join me in welcoming Nicole.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Jenny. And thank you, Bill, for joining us and being prepared to moderate what I hope will be lively Q&A at the end. I'm going to try and go through all of this so that we have about 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. So if you have any curiosities and inquisitions, just put them in the chat along the way and Bill will facilitate those at the end. Um, as Jenny mentioned today, we're really talking about the future of pet supplements. So if you've attended the NASC annual conference, you've seen us present some of the data, insights, and intentions that consumers have for their cats and dogs. Presentation is a bit different. We're going to look at some of those things, but we're going to go a few layers deeper than we have the opportunity to do when we're covering the category at large. So diving right in, we'll be talking about cats and dogs from our area of expertise. So at Marketplace, we have been for 23 years serving the human and pet nutrition markets. Whenever we hear the humanization trends shaping pet, we think how many of those we saw first percolate in the human space. Today, I would argue there are many trends like novel proteins that really start in pet before making their way to human. We do strategy, research, branding, and marketing as a services firm. And more recently, we launched our syndicated research platform, Nextin. It is essentially a turnkey on-demand access to that research that we have been doing for years to allow on-demand insights that really can help brands build their presentation decks, inform their innovation pipelines, sharpen their go-to-market strategies, and more. So that's the background that I'll be bringing to today's webinar. As I mentioned, Nextin is Marketplace's research arm. Essentially, we've been doing custom research since Marketplace was founded 23 years ago, but allowing folks to have on-demand access is to immediate consumer insights when you have that pitch or presentation that you need to have insights on hand to inform. That's what Nextin was created for. And it's all created to really complement what other research firms do with scan data and past purchase data. Our research all looks toward the future. So it's when you need to know what's on consumers' minds before it's on shelves. That's what Nextin's all about. Today, we'll be talking about the cat supplement consumer segments, the next wave that we foresee in dog supplements, ingredient gaps and opportunities, sustainability motivators, and retail channel behaviors. So diving right in, we'll start with cat. So who's buying cat supplements? Today, 17% of US cat owners report purchasing cat supplements in the prior year. This audience, so if we look within that 17%, we have daily wellness, digestion, dental, gut health, immune, and joint health being some of the highest over-indexing need states. Now, when I say need states, we're not just talking about need states for supplements. We're talking about need states for which cat supplement purchasers have purchased a nutritional product, a food, a treat, or a supplement in the prior 12 months. So this really indicates for brands, for ingredient suppliers, where are cat owners' minds and where are they putting their dollars in terms of the need states they identify as essential and necessary for their pets. So these are need states that have motivated a purchase. When you see below any of these data points that plus 15 points or plus 14 points, that's going to be comparative in terms of the overall cat market. So if we're saying 37% of cat supplement purchasers are report purchasing a product for daily wellness, that would mean, and under that you see plus 15. That would mean that 22% of the overall cat market are purchasing a product for that. So it's really identifying where cat supplement purchasers have an extra motivation or extra driven and are again making those purchases. We always start with need states when we're talking about supplements because, as we know, and as you've probably heard me say at the annual conference, benefits drive the path to purchase when it comes to pet supplements. So, certainly, that's how pet parents identify and associate needs before they go to Chewy or Amazon or to that pet specialty retailer or before they pick something up at the grocery store or mass market retailer. They're starting with those benefits in mind. In addition to benefits, there are also formats and products that are positioned in a way that consumers see and perceive to be competitive to supplements. So one threat I do want to point out, specifically in the cat space, but it also really applies to dog, is that there are a large number of consumers, almost half, perceive what, in the market at large sometimes gets referred to as functional treats. They perceive those as supplements. Even in our surveys, when we define what supplements are, and we specifically say treats are not supplements, we still have options that allow people to select things that might not necessarily qualify because we want to know what consumers think, not necessarily what we want them to think. And almost 50% say they've purchased functional treats in the prior 12 months. So again, supplement purchasers for cats, supplement purchasers are twice as likely as even general cat owners to be purchasing functional treats in addition to supplements. I think part of that comes from, supplements are something that in general is part of a regimen. It's given every day. Functional treats, I think, and again, I'm using that term knowing that it's not a term that is welcome from a regulatory standpoint, but using consumer language and some of the market language that's at hand. Consumers think of them as treats designed to promote an additional health benefit or treats made with ingredients that I believe promote a specific support or promote a benefit. Those audiences really, our assumption or our hypothesis is that they're purchasing those treats to kind of plus up nutrition that they expect their cat's getting, but maybe they think they might need a little bit more of, or as kind of like an added advantage. But because there is that misunderstanding and miseducation around functional treats, it really points, as much as it's a threat in the pet supplement space, it also points to an opportunity. Think about, as a brand, your opportunity for consumer education. And while that's mostly in the hands of CPG brands, B2B suppliers, we've worked with B2B brands to facilitate consumer education on even the ingredient front. So imagine a social campaign, treat or supplement, spot the difference, where you can foster understanding and position your brand as a thought leader with an awareness campaign about the difference between functional treats and supplements. On the flip side of opportunities, so building on that, we have that thread over there of how do we make sure consumers understand the difference and the value of supplements compared to treats, or treats that are maybe flirting or in that regulatory danger zone, that are positioning themselves kind of competitively or comparatively to supplements. On the flip side, though, there are also things that can point to opportunities for supplements. 38% of cat supplement purchasers also purchased cat dental care products. So not necessarily supplements, but just cat dental care products. Think water, additives, or chews, toothpaste or gels, things of that nature. The product opportunity here is, okay, we already have an audience that sees this as a need for their cat. They're already purchasing supplements, so they understand and value supplements as part of their cat's wellness regimen. There's perhaps an opportunity to bring to market an oral health focused cat supplement if there's not one already in your product line. On the merchandising side, it could be taking whatever supplements you do offer and offering them alongside dental care product bundles that don't necessarily require them to be dental care supplements, but that could be that dental care toothpaste or gel, or the dental care powder. even just merchandising them within a storefront, whether it's an online storefront or brick and mortar together, so that consumers see their needs being met and are more likely to purchase both products. Those are all opportunities in the cat space. The cat consumer is as distinct as their cats. It's not just cat consumers or dog consumers. I see a hand raised, Bill. I think all things can be messaged in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. But if you have any tech issues, Bill and Jenny can certainly address them. The cat cat owners are not an amalgamous group. So it's not dog versus cat. It's not two distinct markets by species, although those are certainly factors. But even within cat supplement purchasers, we see that there are sustainability investors. These are the folks who are willing to pay more for sustainability. They are more likely to shop brick and mortar pet specialty retailers. They are more likely to buy products from a vet office. Another segment, so these are mutually exclusive segments, is what we call the function-focused segment. These are folks that purchase cat supplements and, as we called before, functional treats. 41% are interested in some of those paste or puree style supplements. When we think about some of those lickable, squeezable cat treats, I have mentioned before that I think there's a lot of opportunity there in terms of potential future opportunities for supplements, understanding there's still some regulatory waters to navigate. People leaned into soft chews, specifically in dog, largely because it created that like sense of a treating occasion or sense of positive reinforcement with their pet. Their pet was excited. The pet parent felt good that they were giving benefits, but also in a format that their dog was excited to eat. And those paste, those puree style supplements would be something that would again foster that connection between cat and cat parent. There's also interest in chewable tablet supplements more so than market average among cat supplement purchasers. So something that maybe doesn't get as much focus today are tablets, but there still is a lot of interest there. And again, not just current purchase, but also if these were options all available to me, this is one I would be interested in for my pet. And then liquid supplements. So those function focused where they're purchasing supplements, so they're purchasing functionally positioned products, whether again, they meet regulatory standards or not, that I will leave to an NASC's capable hands. So always consult your NASC partner. But those are the functionally focused folks and the different formats that they're more inclined to want to purchase. Among US cat owners at large, so the two subgroups on the left are people who currently purchase cat supplements or have in the prior 12 months. In the dark blue box on the right, you see US cat owners. That includes 16% of the total US cat owner market. These are who I call supplement prospects. They are purchasing, those functional treats that we just talked about, but they do not purchase supplements. So this is really an emerging adopter group or a prime opportunity group to convert people and again, educate on the difference between functional treats and supplements. Almost half purchase consumables designed for indoor cats, so for food or treat or supplements that had an indoor cat designation. About a third purchase dental care products and a quarter purchase grooming products. And again, these are all areas where they over-indexed compared to market average. So things, if you are thinking about converting some of those supplement prospects, those would be some of the need states you might want to focus on. As we mentioned, the path to supplements starts with benefits, and we highlighted some of those at the beginning. I also wanted to look at something that one of the audience members at the annual conference talked about when we were talking about ingredients is, okay, these are some of the top trending ingredients, but what's that middle of the road spot that really indicates emerging opportunities? And that's usually what we cover in our reports and our data that's available for licensing on nextandresearch.com. But as our good friends at NASC, you guys are all getting a sneak peek at some of that deeper dive data. So for comparative reference, as I mentioned before, indoor cat is the top need state for cats. In that middle range road, so those need states that are kind of growing, emerging, primarily growing, in a few cases declining, but mostly growing year over year, we see between 13 and 25% of cat parents are falling into that outlined box. So they are purchasing products for gut health, for immunity, for skin, for joint health, urinary care, weight management, calming, senior wellness, high energy. Those I would say are very clearly creating a trend line there. Um, Less so, but still notable, over 10%, um, I think around 13% of cat supplement purchasers are purchasing products, again, supplement, food, or treat to support weight gain, eye health, and heart and liver. So if you're looking at what are some other need states we might add to our product line, what are some other need states we might explore if we're an ingredient supplier that's going to invest in additional clinicals, those are some of the need states you might want to look into if they're not already in your portfolio. And what are need states backed up by? They are backed up by ingredients. So for comparative reference, probiotics, omegas, those are some of the top ingredients that pet parents associate with positive health benefits for their pet. So we gave them a list of 36 ingredients. We said select the top 5 that you feel best align with that. And these were the ingredients most likely to be associated with positive health benefits. Here you can see prebiotics, antioxidants, zinc, B complex, all the way down to biotin are really in that 10 to 20% range. And excuse me, antioxidants and prebiotics were in the 20 to 30%. So you can see those are kind of in that middle of the road sweet spot, and we're among those top 5. Now, this is not the comprehensive list of 36. So here we are kind of honing in on a very specific middle ground to highlight some of the ingredients that are piquing cat owner interest. Cats, as we mentioned, are their own specific audience, cat owners are, and many of them have dogs. I think it's about a third of companion pet households in the US have both dogs and cats. And so while there are some category crossover that's very relevant, there's also a lot to learn about the dog supplement shopper. And while we've talked a lot about dog supplement shoppers over the years, they are always evolving, changing, and growing, just as the trends in the human space are. Um, Here, we're kind of taking that same approach and looking at that middle of the road. What are those demand driving need states that are maybe in that emerging category? So, joint health, skin and coat, daily wellness have, as long as I can remember, have remained in the top 3. They kind of switch up amongst themselves, but they really stay pretty solidly in that top 3 position. So, what's coming next? The whole concept of next in is about what's next in pet, what's next in supplements, what's next in food. That's where we look at these middle ground areas: digestion, weight management, calming, allergy relief, gut health, immunity, senior wellness. Um, the other differentiator that we talk about is the emerging ingredients that, again, are associated. And in dogs, that's going to track with some of the things we saw in cat, but a few things that are a little bit different. Here we see prebiotics, collagen, biotin, chondroitin, CBD, which I know is its own special topic that we don't have time to deep dive into today. Zinc and even postbiotics have really moved up, as have turmeric and ashwagandha, really seeing some positive association. Ingredients, these are all ingredients with notable interest and engagement among dog supplement shoppers. And still, though, with room to grow, which I think is a meaningful point. If you're already capturing 60% of market share in a specific category, you're limited to that remaining 40% for growth opportunities. If you're in that 10 to 20%, there's a lot more opportunity that's remaining. And these data points are intended to help indicate and shape that perspective and tell you where to maybe look further, especially when we think about products. And I'll go back to the need states for a second. Products that meet specific needs, but may or may not have the opportunity for consumers to access them at all the retail channels they shop. So some of those midpoint need states can, again, help you point to things. Again, all of the need states are listed in a very specific way based on what consumers reported. So I will reinforce again, just because consumers say they want a need state does not mean that it's within regulatory bounds to use that as a product benefit, product claim, or other product position on your label. It's to help paint a picture of what motivates consumers and what they want. Delivery systems on the rise in the dog space. probably no surprise to anyone here, soft chews remain far and away one of the preferred dog supplement formats. But one of the other areas that's interesting, and it's also interesting from a regulatory perspective, so I'll defer to the NASC team on that. But you'll see there's a lot of interest in topper-oriented supplements. So this was specific to supplements. So we weren't just asking, do you like food toppers? We were saying if you had the opportunity to get a supplement for your dog in any of the following formats, and I believe there were a few more on our list, but these were some of the most noteworthy. About four of those were specifically had the word topper in the product name. And there was also a notable number of dog parents that reported that their regimen for feeding their dog supplements was to add it to their dog's food. So even if they are feeding a soft chew, they're not necessarily handing it like a treat, although some I'm sure are or might. Some of them are putting it on their pet's food or the powdered products that they're putting on their pet's food. I also like to think of, when we think of humanization trends and how does that continue to evolve in pet, when you sit down for a meal, you're maybe putting dressing on your salad or sauce on your sandwich, or something to dip a vegetable or a French fry in. We see an interest in what I call saucy products that, like a wet gravy like food topper. Now we recognize gravies are not supplements. And from a regulatory standpoint, again, I want to be clear, this is consumer trends. It's not necessarily regulatory guidance. So while that may be a gap where consumer trends are ahead of regulatory, as they always tend to be, regulatory follows the consumer to help have some healthy guardrails, right? But sometimes it can lag, understandably so. Consumers are wanting those wet gravy-like saucy things to add to their pet's meal that add to that sensory experience, but that also deliver those health conditions or those health supports. So those benefits, those need states. Again, keeping in mind that that's what consumers want, but also there's a lot of opportunity to take that knowledge, take that information, and connect it with what is feasible within the current regulatory landscape, and NASC can certainly provide guidance on that. So we talked about cat supplement shoppers, we talked about dog supplement shoppers. Now let's talk about just pet supplement shoppers at large. So here I'm including both dog and cat. When we think about pet supplement purchasers and sustainability, so sustainability is a benefit, but it's not in the benefit in the way we often discuss benefits in the context of supplements. When we talk about benefits, we often are talking in terms of need states. But sustainability is a very values-rooted, values-driven benefit that many pet supplement purchasers are looking for. 79% of cat supplement purchasers are more likely to buy a product from an eco-friendly brand, from a brand they perceive demonstrates a commitment to sustainable practices and they believe to be eco-friendly. 45% are willing to pay more. So that's, again, looking at that cat supplement purchaser subgroup, 79% are more likely to buy, 45% willing to pay more. So almost half of cat supplement purchasers are willing to pay more for a product they perceive to be more sustainable or from an eco-friendly brand. On the dog front, still a notable amount, 64% of dog supplement purchasers are more likely to buy a product from a brand they perceive to be eco-friendly. 29% are willing to pay more. So that is a pretty notable and noteworthy data point, I think. There are certainly organizations that help with sustainability measures and what are things you can do, whether it's in the supply chain, in packaging, in manufacturing to be more sustainable. I'm here to say cat supplement and dog supplement purchasers are looking for that and are indicating an intention to pay more for things that align with that value. And if your question is how much more, we do not have that data, but certainly that's data that we tend to extract when we do our custom research services because there's so many factors that go into pricing strategy between COGS and other things. It's not as simple as saying, would you pay 20% more? Because paying 20% more for a $10 item is a very different request than saying pay 20% more on a $50 item. So we don't have the how much more, but these are people who said, I would be more willing to purchase this and would be willing to pay more. So when we think about the products that they're looking for, the benefits that they seek, the ingredients that they prefer or associate with positive health benefits, the other attributes, the product attributes, the brand attributes, and the personal values that align with their own, we, have products and brands that are out in the market. Where are these supplement shoppers shopping? Supplement shoppers, pet supplement shoppers across the board, dog and cat, are multi-channel shoppers. You are going to be hard pressed to find pet parent a pet supplement shopper who purchases only online or only in store. 91% of dog supplement purchasers purchase products online in some capacity in the prior year. 77% in some capacity purchased a pet product in store in the prior year. For cat, it was 85% online and 75% in store. Amazon still definitely leads the pack. Chewy shortly behind for dog. For cat, the top two are Amazon and pet specialty stores. Wherever you see the word store here in this data, that actually means in a brick and mortar store. So we do distinguish pet specialty stores and pet specialty websites. So you'll see that about midway down the list. We continue to see those e-com giants holding their own in a lot of ways, but we've seen a massive rebound of pet specialty since 2020. For obvious reasons, pet specialty stores took quite the hit that year, but we've seen them rebound pretty phenomenally. There's also a lot of shopping, especially with cat, in mass retail and grocery stores. If you think about the size of cat products, especially when we're talking about foods or treats or even supplements, the amount you need to feed a cat is substantially smaller than most dogs, and that typically parlays into a greater product mix, a greater variety of products that can be stocked in mass retailers and grocery stores without taking up, that don't necessarily have substantial shelf space for pet products as a pet specialty retailer does. So I do always point out that, cats have some advantages. Cat product brands have advantages in some of those mass and grocery retail stores that are a little bit trickier for dog brands just by nature of product sizes and the amount of shelf space available. When you think of how much shelf space dog food takes up, there isn't a whole lot of room left for some of those additional products. And mass retailers, grocery stores tend to focus, obviously, on the repeat purchase staples that really drive those return purchases and recurring purchases and return visits and really drive up that average cart value. Club stores still are holding strong. Veterinary office, one of the things that we always look at are what are the influences in terms of pet health and nutrition information and pet parents. Obviously, veterinarians are a massive influence. And for that reason, we often hear brands saying, oh, I want to sell in through the vet channel. And while that is certainly a valuable effort in a lot of ways, it isn't necessarily the biggest channel, and most people don't make frequent visits to their veterinary office. So, veterinary visits are often for an acute issue or a wellness visit or a more ongoing chronic maintenance issue, right? Those are the most common reasons, or surgeries for preventive care or to address an issue. So when you're looking at products that are dosed on a regular basis that require a certain amount of recurring purchase, veterinary offices typically aren't on people's weekly or monthly shopping trip route. And so it does, dampen the opportunity in terms of volume from a vet office. Now, vets have gotten a lot more savvy with e-com over the years, and many of them have an opportunity to have their own storefront retail channel on e-com where you don't even have to go into the office to purchase a product. So that's data that we look forward to collecting more of in 2026. But really, brick and mortar is having a renaissance for most of the channels, and then Amazon and Chewy still part of those part of those market leaders. I tried to go through it quickly because I know we had a lot of questions, and I'm happy to flip back to any slides that would help facilitate that conversation. I did want to kind of summarize everything and recap everything in context of what's next. So again, this is very forward-looking research. It's meant to both capture current behaviors, because current behaviors are the best predictors of future behaviors, while also identifying what are some preferences, needs, ideas, attitudes, values that may or may not be currently met in the market, because you can't look at past purchase data for products that are not on shelves. So my recommendation to you, whether you are a supplier, a manufacturer, a brand, is to know your audience. Knowing the cat market, knowing the dog market, even knowing the pet supplement market. Those are all fantastic things. But even within each of those markets, there are very specific subgroups, like the cat segments that we dove into. And you can go many layers deeper. Um, if you are a product that is specifically sold in pet specialty retail channels, you don't need to know necessarily or focus so much what's going on in the um, pet supplement market at large. Look at those pet owners who are shopping those channels and then understand what their needs and wants are, because they may over or under index for certain needs and traits compared to the overall pet audience. Again, also segmenting those species, looking at whether they come from multi-species households or single species households. We even have data on the nuances between urban, suburban, and rural households, and how some of the purchase behaviors are affected by that. So after you know your audience, define and refine your opportunity. So you have an ingredient, let's say you have a biotic, and you know that biotic can support gut health, immune health, cognitive health, and skin health. And I'm making up this abstract biotic here. So let's say you have reason to believe or evidence thereof of those things, but you only have clinicals to date on immune support. What do you want to invest dollars in and time for that next clinical? Making sure that, one, let's look at all of the need states that might be demand driving for this ingredient and applications that we know this biotic can go into, and see where that crossover is, where those co-occurrences are, so we can focus our funding and clinical efforts on the right things for our business and brand. Um, on the consumer side, defining and refining the opportunity might look like, again, saying, okay, we are in pet specialty and we're in brick and mortar pet specialty and we're in online pet specialty, but we feel like we've kind of maxed out on the pet parents we can reach in those categories. There's not a lot of opportunity left for us in what we provide. Let's look at, based on what we already provide, what are the audiences that we're not reaching that maybe are shopping other channels? Who's not shopping pet specialty that aligns with these needs, values, priorities? A great way to even just redirect some marketing budget or expand your retail channel strategy in a way you might not have thought of. Third, innovate for what pets need and people want. I'm sharing today consumer trends. So, consumer trends speak to what people want, what they think their pet needs, what they perceive to be valuable, but these are not necessarily nutrition scientists or veterinarians. These are pet parents. They only have as much knowledge as they have been exposed to or have personally gone out and sought. So, knowing what pets actually need, and that also has that crossover with what their pet parents want. Some of the delivery systems that we talk about are an example of that. You can deliver a benefit that a pet needs in a delivery system that the pet parent wants and that the pet will enjoy, and meet both of those things. But start with what pet needs are. And to be fair, those pet parents are that first line they're on the front lines of seeing what benefits or needs their pet has on a day-to-day basis. They're seeing in spring their dog is having some skin allergy issues. They're seeing, when they are dealing with waste management, if their dog or cat is having some digestive health issues or urinary tract issues. that can be supported in some cases with supplements. Again, I want to be careful about supplement versus drug claims here, but there are obviously things that can help support things like regularity, et cetera. And again, I defer to NASC for all regulatory guidance. On that note, go to market with vision, insight, and NASC. I like to start with vision. So what are the possibilities? What could we do? Insight. What do people actually want? What's a need that's not currently being adequately met or not adequately met in a way that's accessible to this audience? And then third, what is in the best interest of pets and consumers and in alignment with the regulatory guidelines that are in place to help ensure clarity, safety, quality for pets and their people? So definitely refer to your NASC partners for that guidance. And then lastly, be the future of pet supplements. If your strategy is to always be a fast follower in the market and to just do whatever, seems to be growing that someone else is doing, then, there is a place for that. But to truly be the future and create, not just follow the future, there's a little bit of taking some big bets on things that are those unmet needs, undermet needs, opportunities that are not quite tapped into just yet, and seeing where it can go. There is some risk in doing so, and in terms of doing something new and different, but there's also a lot of opportunity for reward for pets, their people, and for the brands you serve. That is all from me. I am more than happy to take questions now. I also want to thank NASC for being great partners and allowing us to provide this content to you all today. I will be following up with anyone who registered with a PDF of the slide deck. So you'll get an email from me within the next day. If you don't receive it, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is here. If you want to screenshot that, feel free to send me an email if for any reason the version that I send with the PDF link in it gets caught in spam or something. So you'll get that within the next day. And happy to take questions now.
Thanks, Nicole. Bill Parker, I'll turn it over to you for the Q&A. We have some in the chat and in the Q&A tool, so we'll start working through those now. And you're on mute, Bill Parker.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I'm going to start with what determines eco-friendly? Do customers actually know about the Pet Sustainability Coalition?
That is a fantastic question. So I think at this point, the Pet Sustainability Coalition is still newer to pet parents. It takes, in many cases, certifying organizations and coalitions are recognized. If people see it on package, they say, "Oh, that sounds like a good thing," and that reinforces, a value that I have. Without necessarily proactively knowing and looking for things, it takes a very long time, as we've seen with things like organic certified or non-GMO project verified, or cruelty-free products. And I'm just talking in the broader market at large, not necessarily the pet market. For people to start to know to proactively look for things. But I think reactively, that is something that we've noticed if a certifying organization like NASC, like Pet Sustainability Coalition, are associated with the product, and that logo is on the label, then people receive that as a vote of confidence, even if they don't understand it. In terms of eco-friendliness, I defined it as eco-friendly, and I believe I have the language, yep, demonstrating a commitment to sustainable practices. So in that language, demonstration is part of how we define that. But that can mean different things to different people. It can mean a headline in the news. It can be a sponsored our local Earth Day. It can be recyclable packaging. In our full set of research, we do go into more detailed nuances like recyclable packaging, like sustainably sourced ingredients, like regenerative agriculture, et cetera. So there are a variety of nuanced specifics that we also get into. The data here is specifically on the attribute of eco-friendliness purchasing from an eco-friendly brand that demonstrates a commitment to sustainable practices.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm actually going to skip down to a question that appears to be related to the previous one. On sustainability and the willingness for pet parents to spend more, is the self-reported willingness or is it backed by actual spending data?
This is self-reported willingness. So as I mentioned, the spending data is something that one, there's the scan data version of it for products that are already in the market. If that product is registered with that attribute being trackable. So that's a big factor. Um, when we talk about consumer surveys, we can definitely assess behaviors. So how much are you spending a month on your pet? And of course, what retail channels have you shopped? In asking consumers directly, there's advantages and disadvantages. Advantages, you're getting the information from the horse's mouth. You're able to build an aggregate consumer profile. A lot of scan data is limited to certain retail channels and doesn't necessarily have that full picture of all of the possible retail channels. So this is meant to be a complement to that type of data. It's not in place of, it's not instead of, it's a complement to. And this is self-reported, so there was less likely to the options for this type of question. It's a scale question. We're less likely to purchase, does not impact my decision to purchase, more likely to purchase but would not pay more, and more likely to purchase and would pay more based on very individual specific attributes. And we asked about several different ones.
Right, thank you. Next question. Have you tracked the retail channel mix and how that has changed in the last few years, or is this a one-time data collection?
We have been conducting a version of this survey since 2020, I believe. It was actually a conversation with Bill Bookout at Global Pet Expo and an invitation to speak at NASC that kind of got the ball rolling for us to do this in a way that we could make accessible to everyone, because prior to that, our research had been all client specific. So it was commissioned research where that was when we started doing it for ourselves to share in a variety of ways. So we do have year over year retail channel data. I don't have all of the factors top of mind, but I can tell you that we've seen more omni-channel shopping. So an increase in omni-channel shopping. We've seen a renaissance of pet specialty in-store shopping because that was again depressed kind of in that 2020 time period and it took a minute to come back. So I would say 2022, it started to a little bit more, but really I would say the past 2025 and 2024 is when we really saw that come back. But we do have retail channel data that goes back to 2020. And it's every year we do the survey. So we have it for each year since.
Warm and happy.
Next question. What is your definition of a pet specialty store?
A pet specialty store. So here, for the purpose of data representation, we keep our labels succinct, but we try to make them as identical as possible to the survey language. In our survey language, however, we do in parentheses give some examples to help ensure that consumers are reporting what they're actually doing instead of basing, each label on their individual definition. So a pet specialty store would be like your PetSmart, Petco, Pet Supplies Plus, Pet Food Express, and specifically brick and mortar stores. When we are looking at independent pet stores, that's where it's going to be I'm from St. Louis, so if it's a Treats Unleashed or, a local independent pet retailer, that would be that category.
Okay. This next question I'm going to preface with Nicole. The question is, can you talk a little bit more about the trend in food toppers for dog supplements? Do you see it becoming the dominant format over soft chews? And I would like to preface that with that is probably one that you also want to ask with a member of our compliance team because there's nuance there that you want to be clear before that's even an option. So with that said, I'll give that over to you, Nicole.
Yes, 100% Bill. And as I mentioned throughout, this is what consumers want and how they're behaving currently. It's like if someone says, here are the dosage instructions for this thing, but consult your doctor, and your doctor may, based on your specific needs, advise with their, uh, professional uh, credentials to be able to do so, that something is modulated a little bit differently than maybe is on the label. People sometimes do that and take those things into their own hands, and that does include with their pet. So I have seen a kibble food topper that was positioned as a supplement that was in a kibble shape. It wasn't labeled as that, but it was something that was sprinkled on top of food. I'm not saying that it met regulatory muster, but I have seen something like that in the market. Um, I think that when we talk about toppers, I do think it combines, when we think about the motivations that consumers have that might lead them to respond like this. Food toppers combine the sensory satisfaction of a soft chew with the potentially less mess aspect of being just able to add something on top of your pet's food, or the ability to potentially customize your pet's meal. So, if my dog in the springtime is struggling with some skin allergies, but in the summertime they kind of go away, I don't necessarily want to give him a, skin or allergy support positioned food, because I don't want to be switching up his food throughout the year. I'd rather keep his food consistent and then add something to it that meets his needs for that reason or season. And in that way, I think that is how toppers are being used by pet parents. And I think that's why there is interest in it. As Bill said, there's a lot of regulatory work to navigate there, so I can't speak to that. But I think it's interesting and worth noting that there is that high level of interest. And even with liquid, that example was a little bit longer. It was like broth poured on top of food, like a broth type format poured on top of food. So one could argue that that could be, in a food topper arena as well. And that's more about how the pet parent is delivering it, not necessarily saying it would be positioned like that in the market, but it's the usage instructions, right? You add this to your pet's food. Um, so I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Nicole. Next question. Were supplements that promote multiple functions in one supplement used in your data collection, e.g., immune support plus dental plus skin and coat?
Yeah, so an example that I will give is we ask very specifically what need states have motivated a cat or dog, depending on the survey, cat supplement, food, or treat purchase in the prior 12 months. Because again, we're wanting to understand the need states that are in the mind of the consumer that's driving that purchase decision. And that purchase decision that's an opportunity for a supplement brand might be currently being made in food, because someone's purchasing a food that says, oh, joint support food, I'm going to get that for my dog, as an example, or urinary care food for my cat. But that need state is there nonetheless. So we ask about the need states individually. However, in our deeper analysis of the data, we can see co-occurrences. Co-occurrences are going to be need states that X% of those who have purchased a product, a cat product for gut health, have also purchased a product for, and I'm making this up, but calming or immunity. And that might indicate an opportunity. Okay, maybe we formulate our next product as a line extension with, let's say, I used the biotics example earlier, but with a biotic that has, the data behind it, that it supports both gut and immune health. So perhaps that would be a next generation or an extension of a product line. Those co-occurrences can help point to what cat parents tend to seek in combination, even if not in the same product. Because again, you could be feeding a immune support supplement and a joint health food, you have both of those need states. And perhaps if both of those need states were in the same product or in the same product family, maybe you would convert from being a joint health food purchaser to a joint health supplement purchaser, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Are cat owners more willing to spend more on sustainability because the AOV and total amount spent is smaller, given that cats eat less than dogs? And the follow-up to that is why is grocery store so much higher for cats than dogs? Two-part question.
Yeah. So I don't have exact data on the specific price tolerance for cats versus dogs on specific product types. So I can't speak to that from a data standpoint. I think from just building a hypothesis standpoint, I would venture to guess that because dogs tend to be larger and tend to be higher volume consumers, that and a more premium priced product has a much bigger hit to that consumer's budget or wallet than they would if it was consumed in smaller volumes. I would imagine that the same holds true for small and extra small dog breeds. That would be my guess. And that parlays straight into the grocery store. I think that's why grocery and mass, there is a higher incidence of cat owners purchasing cat products in those retail channels. There's just less variety, fewer options available in dog. Sometimes I pick up my dog's food at PetSmart or Petco or an independent pet store, but maybe one day we realize he's out of food and it's 9 p.m. at night, so I'm picking it up from Walmart or Target, as an example. There's only going to be so many options because the size and scale of the products for dog are so much larger. There's just not as many options. There's not as much variety. And especially with cat owners tend to prioritize a variety of flavors in their cat purchase decision making. So because cats can be finicky and the thing that maybe they've eaten and enjoyed for 3 months, all of a sudden one day they turn their nose up at it and you have no idea why. Cat parents are more inclined to want to mix it up and offer variety with their cat products, where dog parents tend to be a little bit more consistent, especially with base products like food. With supplements, however, there I think again it's more about the benefit than necessarily the flavor or other sources. So I think in grocery and in mass as well, part of why cat shows up so notably there is because there can be such a variety there, and it's much more convenient to for that shopper to just add to their cart while they're already in their store. If you have a cart full of groceries, adding a 35-pound bag of dog food or other products is not always something that is entirely manageable. And then, of course, you have with dog as well, that lesser variety just gives you fewer options.
Right. Next question. What are your thoughts on adaptogens, functional mushrooms like cordyceps, lion's mane, turkey tail, etc., for dogs and cats supplements?
Yeah, so I don't think they're in this specific presentation. I'm trying to double check myself. But we do ask about that. I think that we have seen functional mushrooms take off immensely in the human space. There's still a lot being navigated about in formulation and how it's used. I'm sure you've seen mushroom coffees or coffee alternatives, mushroom supplements, mushroom skincare, a variety of things, ready to drink beverages, and with a variety of different opportunities and benefits. In the pet space, I think functional mushrooms were a little slower to start, primarily because the association with mushrooms is they were always on that no list of human food items that, hey, don't feed this to your dog from the Thanksgiving dinner table. Mushrooms are not good for dogs. And so I think there was a consumer perception around mushrooms based on some of those narratives, like don't feed your dog onions, don't feed your dog mushrooms, that created some hesitance. There's also still a lack of understanding of mushrooms. A couple of years ago, I did or maybe it was last year, uh, maybe two, a deep dive in the human supplement space into the functional mushroom category. And when we asked people if they had consumed a functional mushroom in the prior 12 months in any product, so not just, directly, but in a product, it was a pretty low percent of people who said that they had. Um, but in a separate question, when we said, which of the following, if any, have you consumed in a product in a supplement, food, or beverage in the prior 12 months? And we listed specific varietals like lion's mane, reishi, turkey tail, cordyceps, etc. There was a much higher incidence rate of people who affirmatively said that they had consumed one of those. And I think a large part of that is the varietals don't necessarily always make it clear that it's a mushroom unless the consumer is really doing their homework or really looking at all of the nuanced details on packaging. Because at the time, it wasn't quite in vogue. So yeah, this would have had to be, I guess, 3 years ago or so, at a mass level to, consume functional mushrooms. There was still a lot of people were confused about the difference between a functional or medicinal mushroom and a psychedelic mushroom. And I think some of that confusion remains, but there's certainly been so much more conversation about it that I think that clarity is starting to become true. And as people have experience with those products for themselves, they're more open to considering those ingredients and products for their pet.
What trends are you seeing specifically in the probiotics and gut health category for dogs?
Yeah, so I'm actually at a IPA regulatory workshop right now, so I'm getting a refresher on all things biotics. When we think about opportunities in the biotic space for dogs, I I look at those middle of the road benefits and I think about the opportunity for research to identify specific strains that in canines support these need states based on specific probiotics. Obviously, there's also formulation considerations based on a variety of product format preferences, so those delivery systems. And I think that's also where I was actually talking to a nutrition scientist yesterday about how probiotics and tablets sometimes can be challenging because the pressure of forming the tablet can render a percentage um, of those probiotics ineffective, essentially. So so I think we have to consider what are the formats that are needed, and then what is the right ingredient format or for that, or if you have a specific ingredient, finding the right delivery system for that ingredient to do its job and be as effective as possible in supporting that need state.
You mentioned that cat products being in small packages helps with B&M sales. Do you have any data on the needs of retailers, distributors, et cetera? Do their needs, wants align with customers, or are there advantages to be had by targeting unintuitive retailer needs?
That's a really great question. I think there are advantages to targeting unintuitive retailer needs. So I'll say yes to that part. To go to the front end of it, I think retailers today, especially brick and mortar, and well, frankly, the online versions too, are having to contend with the accessibility of curbside pickup or online orders where things are delivered to home. And so they're having to constantly find ways to make the retail experience something that provides value in a way that can't maybe be matched, whether it's convenience, speed, et cetera. The feeling of not adding to carbon footprints with extra delivery or packaging that maybe goes into a waste stream. I think that those things all can factor into that. I do think that, when you only have maybe an aisle and a half for dog products in a grocery store, you're going to be hard pressed to find ways to add variety. I do think that supplements, treats, toppers, things that can be merchandised on strip clips or co-packaged or co-merchandised, bundled, featured on an end cap, things that can give the retailer something to be excited about that they can offer their customers is one thing to consider for both dog and cat. But yes, I do think pack size can be an inhibitor to offering variety that meets, the broader range of need states in mass and grocery retail stores.
All right. We are right up against the hour.
We have one last
yeah.
question though, Bill, and I think that Nicole can probably answer it pretty quickly. Maybe we should go ahead with that one last one.
Excellent. Does Nextend collect data on sensory attribute preference of consumers such as flavors or firmness of chews?
I believe we do. I don't believe we have firmness. We do collect data on preferred protein sources. We do collect data on other flavor profiles or ingredients, things like peanut butter, organ meat, bone broth. This year's dog and cat data, the individual species data, also has a whole deep dive section on novel proteins. Our pet report that's available on the site live now has a deep dive on biotics. So there are definitely a variety of data points. We do not, though, have the texture, the chew density question, but that gives me an idea of something we can include next year.
Thanks, Nicole. On behalf of NASC, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today and also offer a big thank you to Nicole and the Marketplace team for sharing this presentation with us.
Thank you. And
Thanks,
I'll be
Parker.
in touch with the PDF of the presentation for all attendees.
Thank you, Nicole.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.